Next, let's queer up trans rights. Lesbian tennis star Martina Navratilova says LGBTQ plus community jettisoned her over trans issue. Former Wimbledon champion Martina Navratilova has revealed she feels jettisoned by the LGBTQ plus community due to her anti-trans views. Navratilova, a lesbian and vocal opponent of trans inclusion in sports, argues that transgender rights are being prioritized over women's rights, particularly when it comes to males identifying as females. At a press conference ahead of this year's Wimbledon Championships, Navratilova said, quote, "I've been jettisoned by a lot of the groups in the LGBTQ community, but I've been speaking my mind for a long time, and I'm not going to change that," end quote. Navratilova has previously criticized Harry Potter star Daniel Radcliffe for his support of the trans community, telling him to, quote, "be quiet," end quote, and described a drag queen as a pathetic parody of women after they spoke out against LGBTQ plus hate. She stands firm in her belief that women's sex-based spaces, and especially sports, needs to stay female. Despite the backlash, Navratilova is resolute. She says, quote, "I know I'm on the right side of history," end quote. Navratilova's views have drawn criticism from U.S. lesbian football star Megan Rapinoe, who finds it frustrating when women's sports is weaponized, and supports inclusion in sports despite the opposition. Navratilova remains committed to her stance, emphasizing, quote, "Women are asked to be kind and inclusive, yet by including transgender identified males in women's sports, you're including women," end quote. This story is extremely complicated. I have a love-hate for Navratilova because I do admire the fact that she gets out and speaks her piece, but I just think, actually, I think, Yvonne, you do a lot with transgender, and I think you'd be the best person to speak to this or to open with this.
And I happen to have a friend that feels just like this, even about children that know they're already transgender and want to play in girls' sports. And it's interesting, Martina, that you're going to complain about being canceled or being hated as a way of getting attention. I thought that was interesting. Maybe she was bored. I don't know. But the thing is, some of the main statements that she's made and some of the main points that she'd made, my friend has also made. So I've read this same article from the American Civil Liberties Union several times to my friend. It's the 4 myths about females. And what is a female? Why is there such a problem with this person if this person is a female? And the big one is the myth that the participation of trans athletes hurts cis women. It's the very first one on the ACLU website that they talk about and battle, and it's the very first one that Martina's talking about and that my friends talk about that have this opinion. Including trans athletes benefits everyone. What a slippery slope. If someone identifies as a female and is physically transitioning toward being female or has already transitioned toward being female, where do you draw that line exactly? That's where it hurts cisgender women. If you have a cisgender woman who does identify a little bit masculine of center in some way, are we going to start testing her for hormones or making her drop her pants? I mean, it's just such a slippery slope to start discriminating against people based on what you think they have in their pants or where you think they were born or how you think they were born. And it hurts all women to start that, unless we're going to do it to the boys too.
Well, I think then exactly this conversation, because, you talk about trans in schools now, and I have the same conversation with many of my friends, and I understand what Navratilova is saying because I am a female athlete who came through class, through all my grades, all the sports. And I understand how there could be that sentiment and how that feeling is. We're opening up and including everyone. But let's say someone is, so I'm trying to figure out what would be the best way to just level the playing field. So I think there has to be standards. In sports, there's standards. Like you're a boxer, there's weight class. There's, in sports, female sports, then you have to have a certain like estrogen level. You have to have your hormones have to be at some other level. There has to be, there's a lot of women who are strengths, but if a man comes in, trans woman who hasn't fully, a trans woman, like I want to be inclusive too, but I also don't want to exclude women from women's sports but then you have a woman, let's say F to M, who wants to play a male sport, right?
Right.
And then now you don't hear about those stories so much,
No, you
but
don't.
but you have, an F to M moving into a male sport. Everybody's going to be like, let him go, let him play, let him play.
Do as well, which is not always true.
There's also
And conversely, one of the 4 myths, as you I'm sure are not surprised, is also that when you're a trans woman, you're always going to win against the other women in the sport. And no, they do not always win. No, do they ever win? Sure. But just the idea that they're unfairly just wiping out the rest of the field of the people they're competing against has absolutely been disproven.
Another reason I don't play sports.
the main reason you don't even hear about trans men in sports is this whole discussion isn't about fairness. It's a right-wing media plot. They want to try and divide women and feminists and lesbians from trans people. They do this at all different levels. I've seen the Alliance Defending Freedom gang up on parents with children as young as 6, crying at school committee meetings about how their child was originally able to use the restroom without fear, and now they want to take their own life at 6 or 8 years old. This sort of stuff is never generated in a basis of fairness. This individual, she's espousing trans exclusionary radical feminist ideology. I think TERFs have no place in the LGBTQ community. I see what she's saying, and I'm like, this is not where we are as a society anymore. I understand where feminism was in the 1980s and how it's moved. Julie Bindel is a great example of someone who was much more on the TERF side in the 1980s. Yeah. And there was certain intellectual reasons for that.
Sure.
But she's grown and evolved as a person. She's like, we can include trans people in more ways now. We don't always have to view everything in a hard binary. And I see someone like this, I'm like, either get with the program or get out of the way.
Journey, as you're saying, or maybe 60-year journey. The early days of feminism compared to now, women-only spaces didn't feel safe unless they were sure it was truly women-only in the 1970s, such as the Michigan Women's Festivals. When I found out that they still do events there, and some of them are stating exclusively women-born women, I stopped following them. Mm-hmm. But did we all evolve? Obviously not. And looking back, you have to think about. Did you guys see the little thing that was going on online about would you rather have your wife or your daughter stuck in the woods with a bear or a man?
Oh, right. Uh-huh.
Right. It's like that, right?
Yeah.
These women are more afraid of what men might do than they are afraid to be out in the woods with the bears.
Yeah. But, I think this is like a multi-level, multi-pronged type of conversation, right? Because, it's also about awareness and education, right?
Sure
around
is.
And being willing to have these open, honest, let someone say something ignorant and, uninformed, let them, and instead of us attacking people, let them understand. And there's a saying that says, meet people where they are,
yeah.
Acceptance. And if we as an LGBTQ community are looking, I'm not looking for tolerance, okay? I'm looking for acceptance. Mm-hmm. And in order for us to create acceptance, we have to be the source of acceptance.
I agree.
And so it's a deeper conversation, and we have to bring a lot of solutions. I don't think we're going to get over it in, the 10 minutes we're doing it here,
Absolutely
right?
not.
No.